G'day. This is a quick demonstration on how to use the Xero API with Python on a MacBook Pro. So if you want to import, if you want to create, if you want to download, if you want to update invoices, purchase orders, anything within Xero, there's a really cool API that allows you to do just about anything. So in Xero, if you're using one of the third-party packages that come with Xero, they're using this API to pull and push information back and forth from Xero. And you don't need to use a $60 a month package. You can go and write yourself your own package using Python, obviously if you know Python, and you can use this API to make Xero a lot more functional than it is at its base level. Okay, so here we've got demo company, we've got some draft invoices that I've set up. And what I'm going to do is create an invoice in these drafts with information that I've put in. So I've gone and downloaded Xero-Python from GitHub on the Xero API package or distribution. And with that, I've gone into Microsoft Code. I've done a git clone effectively within Microsoft Code to pull that down. Now on a Mac, using at least the setup that I have, there were at least two things that I needed to change to make this work. One was in the requirements.txt, which tells Python package manager basically to pull down all the different packages or libraries that it needs. I needed to update the Flask-session to be greater than or equal to 0.4. Otherwise, the Flask-session that it installs is too old or not compatible with the Flask setup. And so I got some errors when I was trying to run it there. Secondly, on a MacBook Pro or on MacOS X, the default port number that the demonstration app uses is 5000. On Mac, that port is used by an internal service and it won't work. So we needed to go into the Python file. I'm just trying to, whoops, sorry about that. So we need to go in the Python file. Come on, pull myself down. There we are. Sorry about it. Okay, so right at the end of the app.py file, you'll see that it's saying host, localhost, port 550. That was 5000. I've just changed it to 550. You could change it to anything you want. Over 5000 would be most appropriate. And that'll just get it away from the internal service on the Mac that's causing that conflict. Okay, so once I've changed the port number, once I've gone through the instructions on GitHub on how to create an app within the Xero developer. So you go to developer.xero, you log in with your Xero credentials, you create an app, you set up the configuration, the callbacks, you create a session key, client ID and client secret, basically using a password to log into Xero API. Once you've gone through all that and then you've connected that app with your Xero account and your company that's under that account, in this case the demo one for safety, I'm not going to use my real one. So once you've gone through all the steps, which are all outlined, a little bit clunky, but they're all there. Once we've got that, we can then authenticate and we run our Flask application. So I'll just go through my commands just very quickly. So the commands are create a virtual environment. We need to activate that environment. We install the requirements with the updated package that I talked about earlier. Then we've done that, we just run python.app. And here we've got some debug things that I did. So once that's done, it'll say here running on localhost, HTTP, localhost 550. You can click on that to open up the web browser. And then once we're in here, then we've got our internal little website that's on the back end is calling the Xero API. We've got all these API calls that we can do, credit notes, currencies, employees, etc., etc., etc. The one I'm just playing with just for funsies and to demonstrate on this video is invoice create. So I just went on the invoices, create. Now I've gone into the actual API call and I've made some modification so that I can see that it's actually doing the things. So I'll just run it again, so it's going to create the invoice. I've gone and set the GST to be inclusive. I've gone and set it, Dave Robinson Consulting. I've just gone and basically made some minor changes in that. And once that's done it, so that's run, it's executed, I can go back into my demo company, I can refresh the draft invoices, and here I've got Paddock 02. If I click on that invoice, you'll see some line items that I was just playing with, just to confirm that it definitely is creating that. Dave Robinson Consulting, GST, everything's happy the way I would do it manually and from there. So with that, if I go here, accounting, I'll just search for my name so it comes straight up. So I've just gone into the actual call, the accounting invoice create route. I've just basically changed the description. The one thing I did need to do for the GST inclusive is I did need to set it specifically, line amount types dot inclusive. You can't just type in, you'll see elsewhere in the documentation it says, oh, you just need to send back the text inclusive, and then everything will be fine. It won't be fine. You need to actually set the type explicitly in that group of static types. You need to set it there, and then it will be fine and it'll go through. This is only for the Python one. I think the other APIs might be a bit different. So I'm sure if anyone in Australia, you'll need to set that inclusive for each line item you've put in there if you do have an inclusive price. And and you can create the invoice number. So you could change the invoice number to be, instead of a generic one, something a bit more easier, or unique IDs of certain categories. You could kind of use that as a bit of tracking on that, as long as it's unique, of course, and you get in trouble. But yeah, very, very simple API. I'm very happy, and easy to install once you set up the 2 items on that. So enjoy.